Boot it up, don't crash today. Wi-Fi's moody, that's okay. Coffee's loading, brain still lagged. Luna's laughing, Techie's tagged. We're logging in with Luna and Techie. Tech talk's funny and slightly sketchy. Glitches, giggles, updates to an events. Logging in, brought to you, system ready, slightly unstable. You're logging in, 444, boredom not found. You're logging in, best show around.
Okay, time for another episode of Logging In.
Yay. Is it recording?
It is actually recording.
Okay.
Which is good. So, I mean, I know we talked a little bit about this, but we should probably talk about the whole daycare thing that's been going on.
Well, it's more than daycare.
Well, I mean, what's the best way of putting it then?
You said it's the whole Somali thing?
Well, it's more than that.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's kind of go over the basic story. I believe the guy's name is Nick Shirley, and Nick Shirley is a YouTuber. He's a young professional, probably in his 20s, and essentially in this case, I mean, he typically goes around and he asks people things and sticks a microphone in their face, and when he does that, they just keep talking, and he lets them talk, and then people get upset at him because he lets everybody say what they need to say. And at the same time, he has been known to have spoken in front of Trump and stuff like that, and has gone and does lean Republican, but at the same time, what he ended up doing is, in Minnesota, there's somebody else that's been investigating for a while about these daycares, and apparently it's been talked about before in the news, but this is the first time that the national news is paying attention to it, because he went around on his YouTube channel and was able to package it in such a way where one of the daycares that he featured, like all the daycares, just to kind of make some sort of sense, the whole premise is that these daycares, which happen to have Somalis in it, but essentially these particular daycares, they are taking government funding and reporting that there's a certain amount of kids that are at their daycare, which means that they could be getting millions of dollars because of it. And so as a result of that, he basically went around to all these daycares and tried to enroll little Joey, as he said. And as a result of him trying to do that, they were going in there saying, no, you can't be here. And he just kept asking the question of, like, where are the kids? Where you claim you have this many kids, where are they? Or he went to healthcare areas where there was like tons of healthcare areas in one place, and essentially asked questions like, where can I go and get healthcare? I'd like to register for some healthcare and stuff. So anyway, the whole point is, one of the daycares that he happened to notice, which was, basically, I don't know, he's basically saying that there's fraud in that particular place. They're called a learning center, and they spelt learning wrong. They spelt it Learing. So now he's selling sweatshirts that go and say Learing Center, 1-800-FRAUD, like in the same style of that particular daycare. So I don't even know the best way of summing this up, but essentially everybody is freaking out because this YouTuber went and did journalism, but they're saying that the fact that he did investigative journalism is pro-Trump, and thus his entire journalism is completely invalid, if that makes any sense. So, I don't know if that...
I think there are a lot of things to unpack there.
It's a lot, and I didn't even come through the whole thing.
I'm just saying, like, I literally haven't read any articles or anything about this, personally, so I have no context to speak on anything, but, like, number one, I would think, like, if these places wanted to prove that they were functioning, they should just provide evidence.
Well,
like
that's
that would
the thing.
That would be the simplest thing. Is like, you know, because you were saying that they're like bringing, you know, busing people in or who knows what. Right?
No. So at the time when this YouTube video came out, there was nobody around. So it was even the case where you ended up hearing about the neighbors going and saying they've never even seen kids.
Right.
So why don't you just give them an experience of what daycare was like? Because you ended up teaching.
I'm just saying, like, you know, there's a lot to that, like, where, like, I can't think of this hour. It's hard to prove that one way or another. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I don't know what conversations actually been going on around this, but like, you need a new diaper.
He might. I mean, that's kind of typical. That's like, yes, he does.
Oh, great.
He did a full-on poop.
Oh no.
I don't know what to do on that.
I'll just bring it all over here.
Yeah.
It's not the first time.
It's not the first. Here, why don't you just talk and I'll just...
I'm trying to. I'm just saying, like, the context of neighbors saying, oh, nobody's ever showing up there, like, that's hard to, hard to prove one way or another, but, like, if they really wanted to prove that they're active, they should be able to produce, like, I don't know, photos or, like, drawings by the kids or, like, some kind of evidence that they're functional. So that's my thought on that. As for him being biased, I mean, I think it needs to be talked about. I do find it interesting that it's so front and center, at least according to what Techie's saying. I mean, again, I'm literally not getting any headlines about that on my device at all. Like, I'm just so not, plugged into this whole situation. But it seems like it's being blown up, and this kind of thing, for better for worse, I think happens all the time. Like, this group may be doing this on a big scale, but I don't think this is the only group that has done things like this. And, and I would bet, like, government funding is going all sorts of things that people don't necessarily want. So, I don't know. Is it being blown out of proportion? I don't know. I don't know the extent of it, like, and how unique it is among other groups. Like, is this a distraction kind of thing? I don't know where to go with it. He's stuck up there. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I would say, like, as for the daycare aspect of things, like, in our state at least, daycare educators usually have to be certified by the state. So there's kind of like a registry where, you could look up, whether a school is actually certified and up to date or not. And I think whether teachers are up to date, from what I remember, I haven't done that kind of teaching in, about a decade now at this point, which is crazy. But, again, talking to evidence and things, it just feels to me like I don't really know why this is so abstract, unless things just work really differently out there. Hi.
He decided he literally just wants to do a whole diaper situation. And that's just one of these things where essentially, like, because here's the one thing that's also kind of interesting about all this. When Nick was going around, all these daycares, every single one of them, had their windows completely blacked out. There was no way you could see them.
Right, and which is shady. I don't know that, like, that proves everything. I'm just saying, like, I feel like there's a lot more to this kind of thing than, like, whatever accusations are being made or whatever. Like, is it shady? Yeah. Could it just be a different culture where people, like, really afraid of, being, like, picked up or something? Like,
well, that's the question. The question is like, did ICE or something like that have anything to do with this, where they're now, like, blacking it out because they're all worried about ICE?
But that's the problem that I see with this is, like, I don't, if they're frauding, like, that's not okay. But like, I also feel like it's really hard to know exactly what's going on given the wider context of what's going on right now.
Right.
You know, we see it in our own local area, like people, you know, who like we know are immigrants, like really trying to. Oh my gosh, you cannot handle me like this. I'm sorry. You know, people. What are you doing? No. I got it. Okay, just let me do my thing. People really feeling the need to like close themselves in a lot more. You know?
Right.
Like, you know, even like
At the library.
The library, like, you know, fewer immigrants at the library, like people putting up, you know, higher fences around their properties and things like that.
Oh, right. I forgot about
You know what
that.
I'm saying? So it's like, without understanding that context, yeah, it would sound shady. Maybe it is shady, but it just feels to me like there's so many layers to this that whatever you're reading in these articles is missing all that nuance, and I can't speak to any of it, you know, being so detached from it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, because it's one of these cases where it's like, I don't even know the best way of putting it, but people are trying everything possible to go and to defend the Somalians and stuff like that, which is like, I can understand that. But the one question that everybody's wondering especially is that, okay, if somebody comes over, let's say we went and we brought our kid over to that daycare and requested an application to enroll them. So it sounds like they would not provide us with an application, which is a problem if our tax money, let's say we were in Minnesota, is going to that daycare.
Right, and I mean, that's a problem, but look at like other religious groups who are doing the exact same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the problem I have with this, is like, maybe it's not okay, but why are they picking on them? Why aren't they picking on the hundreds of other groups who are doing the exact same thing every day? And maybe they're, you know, far-right Christian or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like something more supposedly mainstream according to U.S. government or politicians, and like, so that flies under the radar, but let's all put our, you know, target on this thing.
Right.
Right? It doesn't make it okay, but like, again, in a wider context, like, why aren't we talking about the rest of it?
But here's the part that's just almost confusing about it, is that essentially, like, Star Tribune, for example, was invited by 10 of the daycares for reporters to see for themselves. And, I mean, again, it seems like these daycares are doing whatever they can to bus kids into those daycares.
Right.
That's the crazy part. Because again,
I'm just saying, I feel like without, you know, more like local context or something, like, I just can't even speak to this thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the honest truth. Like, you know?
Right.
I mean, like, yes, fraud is wrong. Is it fraud or not? I don't know. I don't know.
Right. I mean, people are upset because CNN is calling Nick Shirley the 23-year-old MAGA journalist instead of calling him what he did, which was an investigative reporter.
It was an investigative report, probably. Again, I haven't read the thing, but like, again, why isn't he investigating other groups that are doing the same thing? That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
It should, like, okay, if this group is doing something wrong, then by all means investigate. But why isn't he investigating the 100 other groups that are doing the exact same thing?
Well, I don't know. I don't watch his channel enough to even know if that's even the case or not.
Right, but that, you know, would be a reason for people to call him that, right? Because like that, you know, a more thorough journalism would be to say, yikes, this is happening. Where else is this happening?
Well, but that's essentially
half
what
the
he's
country-
trying to talk about.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't read his stuff, right?
No, I know.
But I'm just saying, I feel like that's the context that's missing to, you know, to this discussion and any of that reporting is like, you know, half the country could be operating that way, you know, more than half the country, and like nobody's talking about that. So why are we picking on this particular group?
Well, he's picking on this particular state. I mean, so the question is, does that mean, as far as his investigative journalism, that he should have found a white group first, so that way he could then go after this fraud? Would that
I'm
make
just
it
saying,
better?
like, for example, in our state, like, you know, they shut down basically like, all the hotels in the state. Probably
Right.
not all, but you know what I'm saying? Like, in the last few years to house immigrants.
No,
right?
no, but you have to understand, before they did that, there was a different YouTube influencer that went after all of those in Massachusetts and started broadcasting.
I get that, but what I'm trying to say is, like, you have all these things where, like, tax money is going to crazy places.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and you know, and in each area it's, like, treated differently. I mean, like, you know, again, I'm not in government or paying super close attention to this stuff. Hey, excuse me.
All right, dim your screens and ignore your notifications. This is Cali Girl, and the water cooler has logged in. Now let's catch up on the latest headlines you won't find in the meeting notes. President Trump met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago, where he warned that Hamas would face severe consequences if it did not disarm soon. Standing alongside Netanyahu, Trump said the next phase of the Gaza peace plan could move forward quickly if Hamas laid down its weapons. He claimed that dozens of countries backing the deal were prepared to eliminate Hamas if the group failed to follow through, though he did not name those nations. Trump said Hamas had agreed to disarm and would be given a short window to do so. He added that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner would oversee negotiations from the U.S. side. Netanyahu described the meeting as productive and announced Trump would receive Israelis' prestigious Israel Prize for his role in peace efforts. The leaders acknowledged disagreements over the West Bank, and Trump also said he would support Israeli action against Iran if its nuclear and missile programs escalated. And while international diplomacy played out in Florida, a major legal boundary was being reinforced back in Washington. The Supreme Court blocked President Trump from sending National Guard troops into American cities, ruling that he had not met the legal standard required to federalize the Guard under existing law. The decision focused on a statute that allows the president to deploy the Guard only if regular forces cannot enforce federal law. The court ruled Trump failed to justify that threshold despite dissent from 3 conservative justices. While the ruling did not directly address the Insurrection Act, Justice Brett Kavanaugh noted that it could push future presidents to rely more heavily on regular military forces instead of the Guard, a possibility that has fueled political concern. The administration said the ruling did not change its broader agenda of protecting federal personnel and property. And from questions of executive power to questions of credibility, text messages surfaced showing continued communication between Tyler Perry and actor Mario Rodriguez years after Rodriguez alleged Perry sexually assaulted him. Rodriguez filed a lawsuit seeking at least $77 million in damages, accusing Perry of sexual assault and emotional distress. While the suit claimed contact ended in 2019, messages obtained by the Associated Press showed Rodriguez reaching out as recently as 2024 and 2025, expressing gratitude, friendship, and financial hardship. Perry denied the allegations, and his attorney dismissed the lawsuit as a money grab. Lionsgate, also named in the suit, did not immediately comment. The case followed a separate lawsuit filed earlier this year by another actor who also accused Perry of misconduct, allegations Perry has denied. And while courts sorted through allegations, grocery store labels are about to get a lot more specific. The USDA announced that beginning January 1st, 2026, meat and poultry products labeled Product of USA would be held to a much stricter standard. Under the updated guidance, animals must be born, raised, slaughtered, and processed entirely in the United States to qualify. Final processing alone would no longer be enough to justify the label. For multi-ingredient products, nearly all ingredients would also need to be domestically sourced. The rule aimed to close loopholes that previously allowed imported meat to carry patriotic branding. Officials emphasized that this change applied to voluntary marketing claims and did not replace mandatory country of origin labeling. And speaking of costs, returning items to the stores might come with a surprise bill. Major retailers began charging fees for mail in returns, making hassle free returns increasingly rare. Stores like Macy's, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Zara implemented return fees ranging from roughly $10 to $12 for mailed returns, even for unopened items. In store returns remained free, but fees were deducted from store credit when applicable. Retail experts said the shift followed years of increased online shopping and rising costs associated with processing returns, which can eat up nearly 40% of its item's original price. The move frustrated shoppers, many of whom took to social media to criticize the policy. And from tightening belts to expanding bank accounts, Beyonce officially joined the Billionaire Club, becoming the fifth musician to reach the milestone, according to Forbes. Her fortune was fueled by the massive success of her Cowboy Carter tour, which grossed more than $400 million. Beyond music, Beyonce's business ventures, including Parkwood Entertainment, her Sacred Hair Care line, and her Sir Davis whiskey brand, contributed significantly to her wealth. She joined an elite group of billionaire artists that included Jay-Z, Rihanna, Bruce Springsteen, and Taylor Swift. And from record breaking successes to a case moving towards serious legal consequences, sources told TMZ that singer David was likely to face murder charges in the death of Celeste Rivas as the grand jury prepared to consider an indictment. While earlier reports suggested the grand jury was investigative, sources said it was actually empowered to indict. Prosecutors reportedly believe David was involved in Rivas's death. Witness testimony has already begun, including from David's manager, and sources indicated the grand jury process could extend into February. David had not yet been indicted, and no defense presentation was expected during the proceedings. And finally, a tragic accident shook the boxing world. Former heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua was hospitalized in stable condition after a car crash in Nigeria that killed two close friends and team members. The crash occurred on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway when the vehicle Joshua was riding in struck a stationary truck. Authorities said a burst tire and excessive speed were likely factors. Joshua sustained injuries but did not require emergency intervention, according to local officials. The victims were identified as Sana Gami and Lateef Ayodele. An investigation into the crash was ongoing. And while investigations continue in Nigeria, back in the U.S., another athlete is making headlines for very different reasons. New England Patriots wide receiver Stephon Diggs is facing a felony charge of strangulation and a misdemeanor charge of assault following an alleged incident on December 2nd. According to a police report, a woman told authorities she was working as a private chef when Diggs entered her unlocked bedroom and allegedly struck her during a dispute over money she said she was owed. Police said she reported that Diggs attempted to choke her by placing his elbow around her neck, later throwing her onto a bed and dismissing her claim of non-payment as lies. A motion hearing was held Tuesday morning at the Dedham District Court in Massachusetts. Diggs' arraignment is scheduled for January 23rd, the Friday before the AFC Championship game. Diggs' attorney denied the allegations, calling them unsubstantiated and saying they stem from an unresolved employee-employer financial dispute. His defense team has indicated it is working toward a possible monetary resolution, according to the Boston Globe. The Patriots said they are aware of the accusations and will continue to cooperate with authorities and the NFL. The league also confirmed it is aware of the matter and declined to comment further. The case remains ongoing. And that's what made the rounds today. I'm Callie Girl, and this is the Water Cooler. Now, let's get back to pretending we didn't just take a very informative break.
Hey, be nice. Okay? But, like, the fact is, like, that kind of thing, you know, probably raised our taxes. The fact that the government was paying for that, for all these hotels to be converted into shelters. And then also, like, it made it that the cost of these hotels skyrocketed too. So it's like if you needed a hotel for whatever reason, you know, good luck.
You couldn't get one.
You could, not just because it wasn't available, but like the cost was crazy. Like I remember, you know, we were in the process of moving from the last place where we lived, and like that was one option we explored, like going to a hotel for like a month or two or whatever it was to like, you know, transition. And we would go into these places. At that time, we didn't really understand what was going on, and some of these signs weren't covered yet, I guess. But like, you know, we go into these places that were completely silent. You know, pin drop, seemed like nobody was there, and they would tell us, "Oh, like we're completely booked." This is just
everybody's just having trouble today. Everyone's having trouble.
But it was like the same thing, where like, you know, people. Can you pass on me, please?
Yeah.
You know, for context, come here. It's okay. It was the same thing where like the employees would like be like, "Oh, we have no availability," and I'm like, "Okay, we're in the middle of like next to nowhere in an off season, and there seems to be nobody in the building. How do you have no availability?" Right? And these were not, you know, some, you know, ethnic group or who knows what. This was just the, you know, the hotels themselves, right? So I'm just saying, like, there's a whole lot more going on than this, right? Like that's a government thing. This is not like, you know, in our state, like a foreign country sort of like dominating the government, like you're saying is happening over in Minnesota. But like you're dealing with whatever issue is at hand, and these like strange circumstances, if you want to say, that come about as a result of all of that. Are you okay? Everybody's having a rough night. Oh, where else to go with this? Where else would you like to go with this?
I don't know, because I feel like the whole thing is getting derailed in my thoughts is like the kids are running around, which just fits right with the whole daycare thing. It's like...
No, it's a different subject. Sorry.
I don't even know anymore.
I don't know. I mean, I don't feel equipped to speak about this because in my world this is all speculation because I haven't read anything about any of this. I'm just hearing all like hearsay from you.
Well, that's what it's saying. Everybody's hearing hearsay from everybody unless they actually listen to the exact Nick Shirley thing.
I think that's kind of the problem with journalism right now, you know, in general, and especially like, you know, Instagram journalism, if you want to say, or TikTok or whatever these things are, right?
Right.
It's all hearsay.
Well, because I mean...
Which is probably why, like, so-called mainstream journalism hasn't wanted to touch the thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the basic question ends up basically being, when it comes to this level of journalism, is it a case where the best way of putting it is, are YouTubers actual investigative journalist reporters?
I think in the past, if maybe they could be. I really think right now the whole market is built on sensationalism. You know? And, like, you have to do your own research. Now, of course, when I say do your own research, somebody's just going to go to AI and get fed a bunch of, like, fake information, if you want to say. So, like, you know, I don't know where to turn on that anymore.
But, I mean, that begs the question, because, again, before YouTube, it was a case that if you wanted to be an investigative journalist, you had to pay your dues, you had to find a network, you had to go through a whole system.
Yeah, but I'm saying even besides that, I feel like there's been, like, some period of time up until, I don't know when, the last few years, where, like... people to some degree were, you know, reporting whatever they were reporting on YouTube or whatever out of like a, you know, desire to provide good information or, you know, to expose honest facts or whatever, where now it's all about the clicks and the subscribers and whatever, right?
Yeah. So
it's like you don't even know half the time if what you're reading has any, you know, ounce of truth to it or not. Because it's like whoever's doing it, like, is doing it for their own view count.
Well, you had a great example because you were talking about that you were listening to a documentary and essentially they were just getting everything wrong with the AI.
Oh, it was horrible. I mean, it was like a historical thing about a local a local place near where we live that we know very, very well. We've been inside, we've been outside multiple times.
Historical landmark, even.
Right, and we literally like knew this place through and through, to some degree anyway, and like this video popped up and I was listening to it with the kids because they're interested in the subject, and number one, they had like a picture of the wrong building. It did not look like the building at all, inside or outside. They had people inside trying to depict the time period that they were supposedly trying to talk about. Like, the dress was not remotely accurate. They had, words in the building, in a foreign language, which I happen to be familiar with, and they were totally the wrong words. Like, it would never, ever be depicted in that building or, anywhere remotely related to it, right? Like, it was just 100% upside down. Like 100%, fortunately, if you want to say, that video really only had like 15 views. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Right. But I was like, that's a good thing because this was so poorly put together, obviously by AI, but it was just so poor. People joke about like AI, adding an extra hand or whatever. In this thing, it was like literally depicting facts 100% wrong. Not in like a hurtful way, but in an intensely uninformed way. Right? So somebody turning to that and like, oh, here's an opportunity for me to learn about this subject, who knew nothing about it, would be led extremely in the wrong direction. And this thing was being put out there, from my very quick understanding, as like, something to teach you about history, or in theory maybe they're just trying to get clicks, right? But that kind of journalism, like, you're not going to learn anything from that. Right? So for that, like, nobody has really done their research and really poured their heart into it and, trying to tell the story of the place accurately or whatever. They were just like, probably type something into AI and let spit out whatever and didn't look anything else into it, right?
But that's the world we're in now.
Right, that is the world we're in there. And once again, that's why, this whole thing, I feel like there are a lot more questions that need to be asked, before you can even, like, diagnose the situation. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. I think the problem, again, goes with the original premise, which is, like, as a YouTuber is concerned, what exactly does one need to do first if they do find something that's unethical, that allows them to do that if it happens to target a certain group, but that certain group is not participating in an ethical manner?
I think the problem is, like, and again, I haven't seen any of this guy's videos or anything, right?
Right.
How much of a target does he put on the group, right? You know what I mean? Like, I think of other YouTubers over the years who really, like, explored these sort of far-flung groups and really made it a heartfelt effort to explore a wide range of groups, right? Mm-hmm. Without pinning any particular focus on any one of them. You know what I mean? Like...
But here's the question. If going back to daycare again, if no other group but this one group is doing whatever fraud with daycares, assuming that is the case or whatever.
Well, I definitely think that's not the case.
Interesting.
I just strongly feel that that's not the case based on what I know of, some cultural communities, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that group is isolated at all, and I also think that for somebody who is, MAGA leaning, they would have, if they're even informed about it, they probably would have some incentive to hide the information on those other groups, right? Because it would go against their own interests, right?
That they're not even bringing up.
Right, because they want to bring up whatever they want to bring up. I'm not saying this is right, whatever these daycare things are doing are right if they are messing around, right? But I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's appropriate to pin all the focus on whatever this group is.
Because the basic argument that everybody that's defending is just like, if strange men went and they showed up to a daycare. Because here's the other problem that's happening or whatever. They're saying that the daycare is basically open from, I think it's like 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., which is outside the hours that a daycare is required to operate, which is between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Right. Yeah, which is also strange, but again, you just don't know without the context.
Well, no, you
We
have
don't-
the context. The context is they are taking money from the government.
Yeah,
They are
get that.
required to follow certain rules. They're not following the rules.
Right, but we also don't know what the state rules are. I'm just saying here, like, there's a lot we don't know.
Right.
We don't know what the state rules are. We don't know if that's when people over there are having to work and that's when they need daycare or whatever. Like, there's a whole bunch of context that's missing here.
That's the only thing that went through my mind.
Right, like, I'm not saying it's not shady. I'm just saying, like, there's a whole bunch of context that's missing. If I were in his shoes, I wasn't trying to make a big stink about it. I would have done the report, said to myself, oh my gosh, this is just kind of crazy. And then, either quietly gone to whatever authorities or whatever, without blasting it all over YouTube in front of people who maybe, like, would be really cruel. People are cruel in YouTube.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or wherever you're saying this was posted.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it was posted on YouTube.
You have to be careful what you're putting out there unless you really have the intent on disrupting people's lives.
Well, I think the case is that whoever's been researching this particular issue, for the longest period of time, they were going and they were finding themselves like not getting anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, there was local reports about it. Yes, there were some fraud things that were captured. There was even an article from their group, which was in charge of finding fraud, and was saying it's not good that our group is committing fraud. That they've been...
Right, but rewind this for a second, right? If you have something that's doing fraud in a local community, right? In any of these far off places, talking to the authorities in that community, they're not going to do anything. Okay,
Yeah.
that's just like common knowledge.
Yeah.
Right, but like blasting it all over social media probably isn't so responsible either.
It made it a national story, and
Right.
now they're actually going after it.
Right. But it's like, is that the way to go after it? Is like, hey, everybody get your pitchforks. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels to me like almost more of a distraction at this point. Again, even if it's wrong. I'm just saying, like, why didn't this person, like, go straight to the FBI? Or something. Bypass
I don't think the FBI even would listen.
Right, maybe they wouldn't, but who knows? I'm just saying, like, why go straight to social media?
Well, obviously it got results.
It got results, but are those results in place because they're trying to distract from something else? You know what I'm saying? No, not right now, sweetie. In a few minutes, okay? Yeah, it feels like there's so much more going on right now that, like, is being hidden by this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and granted, you didn't even listen to the video, so it's like you're just like everybody else that's hearing YouTuber found this fraud. Everybody go get your pitchforks versus actually like listening to it.
Right, that too. I'm just saying, I see so many things like this all the time. Okay, I'm not happy with a lot of places my tax money is going.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't mean it shouldn't be fixed. Like, of course it should be fixed. I'm just saying, like, I feel like with this kind of information, it should somehow be handled with, like, more care. I don't know what,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I think, you're not really, like, an influencer type, but, like, I think, like, the kinds of things you put on your social media, it's, like, very, very, very thought through, strategic, especially if it's sensitive subjects.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There is no pointing fingers at specific individuals, even if it's well deserved. You know what I mean? You handle this stuff with kid gloves.
But you have to now.
You have to, but exactly for this reason, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you don't want, let's say these people are innocent and they're just trying to, like, function. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But now this person started, like, a whole, like, firestorm around it.
Well, everybody's knocking on their doors pretending to have kids and are asking for applications.
Right, exactly.
All
But it's like,
in multiple states now.
right. But it's like, I think of, like, some of these other communities, religious communities or whatever, like, might not just let everybody into their schools, and that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
it's not okay, but it's how their culture works. Like, if you're not from a certain culture, you're not getting in, you know?
But then the argument is, don't take government funds.
Right, exactly. And, that's a whole other conversation. I'm just saying, like, there's the line there that, like, I, am not the person to draw it.
Right.
But there's just so much nuance to this.
Yeah.
Somebody who's purely looking at it, black and white, like, without looking at all the nuances, is not going to, be able to provide a, respectable solution. Are we over 15 minutes, by the way?
Yeah. We just had everything fall at us at once.
Yeah, I know, I get it.
So that means basically we're at 30 minutes. So
We're
pretty
already
much,
at 30 minutes?
apparently, between diaper changes, kids arguing, and everything else, yeah, we hit 31 minutes. So I guess that's the end of the show then.
So when is water cooler gonna happen?
It probably already happened.
Okay.
In that case, I'll just insert it somewhere in between, I guess,
Fine.
of all this. Happy New Year's 2026.
This is so sideways.
This is just chaos. Or we could try recording the whole thing over again.
No, I don't have the brains for that right now.
No, but I think that tells us
I
everything.
think you're gonna have to put the water cooler at the part where, like, you remember you, like, ran for the diaper for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I was sitting here trying to talk to myself.
Yes.
For the most part, it worked, but there was a little bit of a lull. Put it in there.
Oh, there was?
There was a little bit of a lull. My brain's going out.
Alright, I'm gonna have to listen it back and just
I
be
know.
like, okay, here, this is the perfect water cooler spot.
Yes.
Alright, are you ready for 2026 then?
I don't know.
Because influencers are taking over for the general media. That's basically the summary of this. If you like it or not.
The other thing, like, I have to say, like, sorry to add, like, a couple more minutes to this, but, like,
I think it's an important topic.
no, it's an important topic, but, like, I thought it was so interesting, like, that, I had, like, the ball drop on and everything like that a little while ago, and it was on a New York station, so, like, right in the middle of it, they cut to, like, breaking news and, Mamdani being sworn in.
Yeah.
And, like, but it's like, I'm so out of the loop, I didn't know that was happening tonight.
I had no idea.
So we're all just kind of staring at the screen like, what?
What is this?
But it feels like another thing in this, and again, I haven't had time to, read up on anything about him, I'm just hearing hearsay on that too. It's not my state, like,
There's gonna be YouTubers going after it. He is another example of a YouTuber influencer.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it was just really kind of interesting and eerie. I don't know, like, for all that to kind of be in the middle of the night. I don't know if they always do that on New Year's Eve.
I don't know.
I have no idea, but I feel like it's kind of along the lines of the rest of this is like, where politics and popularity and all these things like cross with, just general cultural things, right?
Yeah.
Like, people just sort of celebrating New Year's Eve, and all of a sudden it's like, quick, we're gonna, like, swear in a new mayor, and then back to New Year's Eve. Almost so, like, people wouldn't notice it, or I don't know.
It was strange. It came off as strange.
It came off as really, really strange. I don't know what to make of that one either.
I don't know if it happened to anybody else's broadcast or not, but it was just really strange.
Right. And again, that was like a local New York broadcast.
That was CBS.
We happened to be listening to. Yeah.
I
don't know.
I was just like, it just took me off for a second. And the kids are sitting there staring. They wanted to see the ball drop.
Right.
And they're sitting there watching this guy get sworn in.
Right. It's very interesting.
But that's why I'm saying, that's probably why I brought this whole thing up, and that's the only reason why I'm talking about it, is because it's like, I don't know if Nick is right or wrong, indifferent or whatever, but the fact that a YouTuber has that much political power
Right.
without being elected.
Right.
That's the reason why I brought up this topic. I just wasn't able to present it well from the beginning because, again, I had all this noise all around me.
I feel like that's how this goes with influencers in general these days.
Yeah.
Like, politics and things have always been about popularity to some degree, but again, I feel like it used to be really to some degree, a system more about, like, people honestly trying to do the right thing or, steer things in the right direction. Not that, I think they don't do that anymore, but, like, the level of the popularity content, like, the best analogy I can think of is, like, the middle school class president election where, the popular kid says, I'll give you all cupcakes if you vote for me.
Oh my.
You know what I mean? And, like, they could have the worst possible policies, but they gave cupcakes to everybody, and now everybody, wants them in. Right? Like, it feels like a lot of that these days.
Yeah.
I don't know that things always went that way. I don't know, but it's a very strange time.
I think that sums up 2026.
You mean 2025?
No.
Or 2026?
What we are discussing here is happening at the end of 2025.
Yeah, no, I get it. I know.
So, honestly, my really bad prediction for 2026 is that Nick is not going to be the first nor the last.
Yeah. But I don't think he has been the first. I think people have been, doing these kinds of things for a few years. Just the level of, pointing fingers at a particular group, is kind of a new thing.
Look how fast everybody moved on this.
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
which means the algorithm handed it to them on a silver platter.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's enough people now that are talking about this, which means that the algorithm served this to everybody.
Right. Except for me.
Right. For whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, you get very different things than I get.
I understand that. But that's why I'm bringing it up, because it's
But you know what? Like, the thing is, when I look at what I get versus what you get, like, I don't even get a lot of stuff that you get, but you get a lot of these, like, sensationalist, like, I hear the stuff you're listening to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
To me, it's fluff.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you're into all that stuff, but, like, no, but really, I'm just saying, like, there's obviously some segment of the population that loves the sensationalist stuff. And I obviously don't fall into that. I get, like, different, sensationalist stuff. But, like, it's not so much, like, this stuff pointing fingers at individuals and look what's happening in society. It's, like, people talking about, like, the stars and God knows what else.
No, I get it. But the fluff that I get are people who have 10 million, 20 million, 30 million subscribers. So as a result or whatever, it's like, okay, I need to know what's going on, because I just need to understand what is the general... It's kind of like the idea of... And it's funny we mentioned water cooler, but the fact of when Survivor was first on the air, the first season, everybody tuned into Survivor and you watched it live, which means there was no taping, there was no, like, streaming, there was none of this. It was basically must-see TV, as far as if you did not watch it, you were not part of the conversation of America.
Right, but I also think, like, back during that time period also wasn't quite as brutal.
It wasn't, no.
It was, like, brutal in its own way, but, like, seems so innocent in comparison.
Well, everything is.
No, I know.
More innocent.
I know.
But yeah. So that's where it's been interesting to see how mainstream media is approaching YouTubers and how YouTubers are approaching news.
Because the thing is, back then, I think of, like, entertainment shows at night, and, like, if you were going to get that kind of fluff, that's where you were going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty much like when those shows were over, that conversation was over.
Right.
And then you just move back into reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we talked a lot.
I think so. I'm surprised we talked this much this late at night.
I think it's because it's again, being New Year's and stuff, it's just like just
Usually I'm out on New Year's, though. I don't know. The energy's been very strange today. It really has.
Yeah.
On so many levels. It's a whole other conversation, but it was just really interesting to observe how people were functioning.
Yeah. Yeah, just even buying food and stuff like that. It was just a very different energy.
Yeah, like we deliver for Instacart sometimes, and like we picked up a few batches today, and like, we always feel like a certain like pulse on what people are doing based on what the contents of the batches,
Yep.
Like it'll be like, okay, like this person, is obviously sick, they're asking for cold medicine and chicken soup, and like, there's like a little collection of things where you can kind of like understand the context. But like, but yeah, it felt like a lot of like that energy today, and like a lot of like people trying to like scrape by into some sort of like trying to make themselves feel like it's New Year's.
Right.
But like even like traffic patterns and like, you know, the stores and everything were just kind of like everybody was kind of in a slump.
Oh, even the
Like,
employees. Even
yeah.
the employees were.
It was just a very strange energy today. So I don't know. So in that context, I'm surprised we're so late, but whatever.
Yeah, no. I mean, we're basically hitting 1 a.m. now.
Yeah.
So I think we basically loopy enough as it is.
I know.
Log out time.
I think so.
All right, logging out. Bye.
Tech talks funny and slightly sketchy. Glitches give those updates too. It's logging in, brought to you, system ready, slightly unstable.